Got done just shaking his head when P.J. Washington's name came up. He said, we've got to turn that water off if we want to win this series for sure. Now, the problem is, why is P.J. Washington getting these open looks? Well, it's because he's a 32% three-point shooter during the season, and the Thunder decided we can live with those looks from P.J. Washington if we're clogging the lanes for Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. Doncic and Irving are averaging only 40 points per game during the series. That's down almost 20 points from their regular season norms, but P.J. Washington has absolutely made the Thunder pay. Now, do you adjust to that if you're Oklahoma City, or do you continue playing the percentages against the hot hand?
Turn the water off. I love that. That's essentially what I say every time my 3-year-old goes to wash his hands. Water doesn't pay for itself, Sander. Tim McMahon joining us ahead of the latest with Dallas and OKC. Thank you, Tim. Much more NBA ahead on SportsCenter. We're going to take a look at the key changes the Nuggets have implemented to reset the series against the Timberwolves. But for now, we're going to go back to the NFL, where the Patriots wrapped up rookie minicamp. All eyes on quarterback Drake Maye. New coach Drake Maye, personnel chief Elliott Wolf will forever be tied to the guy they drafted 3rd overall. Maye was wearing number 10. The team is hoping he does a heck of a lot better than the other number 10. That was Mac Jones. Mayo speaking today about his new signal caller.
Early impressions of Drake, look, I mean, he has a lot to work on. He has a lot to work on, but I have no doubt that he'll put the time in. So, you know, I know you guys saw him out, or you didn't see him out here yesterday, but, you know, he was here all night trying to get, you know, on the same page as everyone else.
He has a lot to work on twice, says Mayo. We bring in Dan Orlovsky. Be a little bit more specific. What area needs the most improvement for Maye right away?
He's got to start here. He's got to go from the ground up more. 2 reasons why. Number one, his feet, and I've talked about that really since college football season ended, a little bit too all over the place. Can you be a little bit more grounded and a little bit more consistent? The second thing, for as big and as powerful of an athlete that he is, sometimes the ball doesn't drive the way that you want it to. And that's because he's such a naturally gifted young man, throws so often with just his arm. Once he develops and once he gets a little bit more grounded, plays with a little bit more base, and from that ground up, he'll control itself a little bit more. He'll be way more consistent. And you will see that big arm start to drive the football a little bit more on those 15 or 20-yard throws. He's such a young and talented player that sometimes you just get away with it. Once they really hones into that and uses the ground and plays from the ground up more, he'll take off.
Yeah, Maye's completion percentage dropped each of his last 3 years at UNC from 70% to 63%. But if anybody can turn this thing around, it's gonna be Maye.
All that I do.
Okay, well, we're going to get in trouble, but I'm glad that you picked up my joke. Thank you. Let's go to quarterback Bo Nix and the Broncos, finishing up their rookie minicamp this past weekend. Nix is the most
we crushed that
experienced college quarterback in FBS history. We did. 61 career starts between his time at Oregon and Auburn. Here's his head coach, Sean Payton, talking about his weekend.
You had 2 or 3 down the field throws today. It's almost like watching a good golfer. You know, sometimes when you watch his game, there's a patience to how he plays. The ball comes out, and I don't want to use the term boring. That's not the right term, but pretty good decisions. And with each play, the efficiency and how he's operating, all of that. But I thought he threw it well.
I don't want to say boring, but I'm definitely going to say boring.
It's the word I use all the time.
That's
He's
like a
exactly
good thing?
Right. Absolutely. High-end quarterback play, unless you're a freakazoid athlete, is boring.
Okay.
And that's the thing. Sean Payton is spot on. For Bo Nix, it's ego. You know, when he went to Auburn, part of it was the expectations. His dad played there. He was a highly recruited kid, so you're trying to go prove that you belong, right? And the young player at Auburn, it felt like every play was, okay, run around and make this jaw-dropping, unbelievable, physically athletic play, and it got him into trouble so often. And then he transfers to Oregon, and he gets rid of that young man that we saw at Auburn, and the expectations a little bit went away, and he was no longer trying to prove himself. And he just played efficient, boring football. Well, he's the 12th pick of the draft now, so those expectations could potentially come back. And I think for Bo, it's really just remembering how he made himself a different player from the guy that was Auburn to the person that we saw at Oregon. It was getting rid of the ego and playing in that boring and being okay with it. Yeah. And it's really hard to do when the expectations are so high. 12th pick, you're going to a coach that took Drew Brees and won a Super Bowl with him, and everyone's saying, you're his Drew Brees. You know, honing in on the boring element of that and allowing that to be the trademark superpower of your game, which it is, that's going to carry him.
Nix is actually the only quarterback in FBS history to be responsible for 55 touchdowns at multiple schools and the first in history to make all 55 of them boring. Dan Orlovsky's never boring. Thank you, Dan. Well, that's not true. Sometimes you're boring, but not today.
Yeah, I am at times. Probably more often than not, to be honest with you.
Your food is.
Yeah.
Should see Dan eat. It's like cubed boiled chicken. Blech. Coming up after fighting injuries all season, is time finally running out for the Knicks as their star players play more and more minutes throughout the postseason. Our NBA champ weighs in on New York's challenges. And Rory McIlroy fresh off a win at the Wells Fargo. But how will that momentum carry into this weekend's PGA Championship? Got a little preview of this weekend's major when sports